Everybody around the game of Major League Baseball, and yes, I mean everybody, especially Met fans, think David Stearns, the general manager of NYM, has no idea what he's doing and is just not cut out to run a big market team, especially after letting Edwin Diaz, the best closer in Mets franchise history, walk out the door for a difference of $3 million to the rival in LA, while simultaneously, the next day, letting the franchise leader in home runs walk out the door in first baseman Pete Alonso without even making him a cursory offer to stay in Queens. This also came on the heels of last offseason signing right-hander Frankie Montas to a 2-year, $34 million deal in which he totaled a 6.28 ERA and was released later on. So again, this all begs the question, does David Stearns know what he's doing? Let me answer my own question and say yes. And you know what? I will say yes emphatically. In order to say this, I have tangible evidence that dates back to his days in Milwaukee with the Brewers, going back to his first year on the job in 2015, as he was taking over a franchise toiling in mediocrity with 82 wins, 74 wins, and 83 wins the 3 years prior to his tenure, in which they failed to reach the postseason in all three. It was just a squad completely devoid of talent, position player-wise, with catcher Jonathan Lucroy and center fielder Carlos Gomez, the only two of the starting nine, with WARs over 2, with the rest of the lineup littered with failed prospects, and the likes of Scooter Gennett and Gene Segura most prominently, and not to mention, as well of course, the carcass of third baseman Aramis Ramirez, whose days of producing were long behind him. The pitching was more representable, sure, but their best starter that year in 2014 was inarguably Kyle Loesch, who was 35 years old and clearly was not going to duplicate the season that he just had. Willie Peralta was a promising young starter at 25 years old with a 3.5 ERA. However, he was entirely too erratic with over 60 free passes, and his underlying metrics were not at all favorable, including his 4.11 FIP, which implies he ran into a ton of good luck. It was the definition of a middling team with no real foundational pieces to move forward with, and Stearns ostensibly agreed with that sentiment, as he immediately tore apart the roster upon arrival, trading Carlos Gomez to the Astros for a package including Josh Hader and Adrian Hauser, while in a separate move, he flipped veteran starter Giovanni Gallardo to Texas for 3 prospects and flipped first baseman Adam Lind to Seattle for another 3 prospects, including Freddie Peralta. These moves obviously signaled David's lack of faith in the direction of the organization he took over for, and decided to take it in an entirely separate direction. And boy, did it portend good things, as just after a couple of inevitable down years in 2015 and 2016, he made a couple of massive off-season upgrades in trading for Mike Moustakas from Kansas City, and the trade that still rings for them today, in acquiring Christian Yelich in a blockbuster for Miami for a bevy of prospects. The once desolate Brewers rattled off 4 straight postseason appearances, including 2 NL Central crowns, and the main impetus was their general manager David Stearns, as the litany of sly moves he made propelled the mid-market squad to heights they had not achieved since 1982 when they lost the World Series. That's over 40 years ago. I say that all to say, if you're a Met fan, you should have every reason to put your emotion to the side and have faith in that boy wonder David Stearns, because he knows what the hell he's doing, and if you give him time, he will in fact build it. Since he took over the New York franchise in 2023, he has propelled their farm system from in the 20s, according to all reputable sites, to into the top 5. They have 3, count them 3, top 30 overall prospects, according to MLB Pipeline, in Jet Williams, Carson Bench, and most notably Nolan McLean, in whom we've seen pitch to an ace at the major league level. Right-hander Jonah Tong and Brandon Sprout are also very highly thought of. They have the makings of a loaded rotation, spearheaded by Nolan McLean, that could be around for a while. And even if just one of Williams and Bench hit, you have a lineup spearheaded by Lindor, Soto, and one of those 2 prospects. He has so many different directions he can go in to use his magic and improve the roster. You have a glutton of infielders with the addition of Marcus Semien, now with Jeff McNeil, Mark Vientos, and Brett Beatty, and with alluded to Jet Williams frothing to make his debut. What could Stearns get for one, maybe 2 of those players in a trade to improve either with the prospects or ready-made big leaguers such as a couple of relief arms? Who knows, but you have to trust them. Additionally, with all the starting pitching prospects they've piled up, they could look to move on from some veterans, such as Dakota Senga, Ashan Manaya, or David Peterson. And again, who could he pry from another team for one of them to improve the squad? And once the trades get consummated, you have to have faith in him, because once again, he did a successful swap in every season he was with Milwaukee. With the gluttonous roster he has, it should only provide fruitful options and flexibility for him, not to mention the resources he has access to with Steve Cohen as his boss, a luxury he just did not have with the Brewers, but was still successful despite that. Now let me be clear, I'm not at all saying the 2026 New York Mets will make the playoffs, because the roster, especially the lineup, is devoid of pop, and the bullpen aside from Devin Williams lacks any lockdown arms. However, you have no choice but to believe in David Stearns' vision, because we have proof of concept of what he built in Milwaukee with $100 million less in payroll to work with. So put your emotion to the side of losing Pete Alonso and Edwin Diaz and trust in Stearns, because frankly, what other choice do you have?
Help me polarize, help me polarize, help me down.
If you like this video, consider commenting, liking, sharing with a friend, and subscribing.